Overthinking what you say on a date, during a meeting, as you approach a stranger or have a tough conversation, it can really cripple your success and your enjoyment of life. And it's in part because this compulsion to say the perfect thing is a reflection of a deeper problem. And I know this because for most of my life, I was extremely shy, introverted, I was overweight, and just overly self-conscious. And this heightened sensitivity to social judgment impacted the way I interacted and engaged with people. And that intrusion, that attempt to control interactions only made them worse and eroded my self-esteem further. Over 200 self-help books later, 10 years of therapy, socializing, spiritual practice, and a career in sales, I've essentially overcome this overthinking problem for myself while remaining authentic and often my still introverted and quiet self. And so in this video, I want to talk about kind of the 4 main stages that I moved through to get to this point and how they build upon each other to develop self-esteem, and ideally provide some insights for you to transform those previously anxious interactions into an opportunity to express yourself freely and to connect and to simply enjoy life a bit more. If you are incessantly overthinking what you say, ask yourself this question: what does my behavior tell me about what my motives are? What you might find is that an insidious intention sneaks up on us during social situations. We view the interaction as a chance to seek approval or validation, or to avoid embarrassment and shame. If our subconscious intention is to prove ourselves, of course we're going to be preoccupied about the perfect thing to say. So living purposefully and unleashing our confidence, it does require very clear and authentic intentions for every social interaction or social environment. To help ensure that you're not defaulting to those subconscious and fearful intentions, I want you to consider these few questions that I'm pulling from a book that I will talk about later in the video. So in any conversation or social environment, ask yourself these questions. What do I really want for myself? What do I really want for others? What do I really want for the relationship or the interaction? Now, once you've answered those questions authentically and honestly, just ask yourself one more simple question that could be very telling. How would I behave if I truly wanted those results? When I examined those questions for myself, I found that what I wanted was not perfection or approval. What I truly craved was connection and authenticity. Getting clear on our intention is not only a great reminder of our ultimate goal, but it also sets a frame for our self-expression and our communication to move through, and helps us recognize when we've left that frame, we can course correct. So if you notice in an interaction that you're starting to people please, or you're starting to overthink what you're saying, take a moment to recognize if your intention has shape-shifted into old patterns of trying to avoid embarrassment or trying to look cool or trying to be right. When our intention is to express our authenticity with no concern about perfection, that allows a natural flow of whatever arises, right? And whatever arises is authentic, and whatever is authentic is good enough. When we communicate with the goal of connection rather than the goal of approval or control, we naturally bring a more curious, open, and flexible energy to the interaction, which creates space for more meaning and depth and connection with the other person. In order to alleviate compulsive thought and bring a truly carefree energy to the interaction, you have to develop a capacity to be present to the moment. Now, you've heard this before. Your mind is already resisting this because your overthinking mind wants you to truly believe that overthinking what you say is going to solve your problem of saying the wrong thing. That's a lie. Overthinking, when it comes to self-expression and communication, is not a solution to any problem. It is the problem in and of itself. When we are utterly focused on what's happening right now, rather than ruminating over the right word or the right responses. It opens up a capacity to listen, truly listen, and then to respond in a intuitive and authentic way. Letting go of control like this might sound scary if you're not accustomed to it, but you will absolutely find that connection and self-expression is less about what you say and more about how you feel when you say it. You know, the person that you're standing in front of is not going to feel good around you because you said the perfect thing. They're going to feel good around you because you feel good, because you feel at ease, you feel authentic and in the flow and intuitive. Now, the initial challenge solving this overthinking problem is that oftentimes we're so caught up in the mental commentary and the associated sensations in our body that we don't even recognize that we're lost in thought. We become so identified with the thoughts themselves that we kind of go away, so to speak. And so this initial task is to develop the capacity to recognize thoughts as thoughts and notice them as they arise. Now, this is commonly done through a mindfulness practice. You're probably familiar with that. I would urge you to maybe use the rest of this video as an opportunity to flex that mindfulness muscle. So you're listening to me now, but when you notice a thought arise in your mind, maybe a mental comment, or you get lost in thought about the rest of your day, notice that thought, acknowledge the thought, don't resist it, and then just simply shift your attention to some anchor in the moment. Maybe it's the sound of my voice, maybe it's the feeling of breathing, maybe it's your feet on the floor, or your butt in your chair. Just shift your attention back to the moment. And you can do this exact exercise when you're standing in front of someone talking or when you're in a meeting. When you notice you're lost in thought, shift your attention back to some anchor in the present moment. And I want to emphasize that you should never judge yourself for being lost in thought. It's going to happen constantly. So rather than place any judgment on how frequently you're getting lost in thought or what you're getting lost in thought about, simply compassionately notice the thought, acknowledge it, and then shift back. The mantra I like for this is just simply begin again. Over and over. Simply begin again. When you pair the right underlying intention with this capacity to be more present during interactions and when expressing yourself, you're going to uncover and develop a newfound level of trust in your ability to respond appropriately to all situations. It's intuitive. You have the capacity to do this, and this allows you to do that with less judgment and more enjoyment as you're going through the process. Now, if negative mental commentary is a huge sticking point for you, it's really tough for you to get over this negative inner critic. I actually made a full video dedicated to the nature of this inner critic and how we can change our relationship to it. I'll link it here. That might give you some additional insight after you finish this video. Now, you're going to find that with the right underlying intentions paired with that capacity to be present, those two things alone can transform the way you engage with people. It's worked for me. So focus on that first. But with that said, there are going to be some specific situations that are outcome driven where effective communication matters. The words you choose matter. So maybe you're trying to sell a product, or you're trying to persuade someone of your point of view, or you're trying to broach a really sensitive subject where the stakes are going to be high. In those situations, it is helpful to have a toolkit that you can pull from for really effective communication. As an example, I made a video for introverts with 3 pretty tactical techniques for them to amplify their strengths and have better conversations. And I think that's a good example for how you can take the right intention, that capacity to be present and authentic, and then if you stack some useful and effective techniques on top of that, it can really help you drive interactions towards the outcomes that matter to you. Now, there are plenty of books and resources and teachings that have impacted the way that I engage with people. For this video, I'm just going to focus on 3 and give you a high level for each of those. And if you want me to go a bit more in depth on any of these resources, feel free to leave a comment down below. The first book is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. I think this book is non-negotiable if you want to be an effective communicator in your life and in your relationships. You got to read this book. I also love the audio book version, and I love it in part because Marshall himself reads the book, and sometimes his tonality and the way he speaks has a really cool impact on the way that I learned about the techniques. Rosenberg's nonviolent communication framework and techniques empowers us to speak from a place of needs and feelings rather than being overly concerned about how people perceive us or trying to people please. So this will really enable you to have arguably difficult conversations with strangers, but also people that you love and care about, and to have those conversations in a truly productive way. The second book is called Crucial Conversations: Tools for Talking When the Stakes Are High. Now, this is the book that earlier I pulled those intentions from, the questions around how would I behave if I truly wanted these results. This book teaches you techniques on how to handle really high stakes conversations where emotions are running high, and to handle those situations with confidence and clarity. Key concepts from this book include how to create a safe space for dialogue, like how to actually do that, and how to notice when the space is no longer safe. It's incredibly valuable. It also talks a lot about understanding your own and the other person's motives and intentions, which we talked about. And then lastly, it covers some really life-changing language-based techniques for how you can communicate in an honest, authentic, but a direct way to help people understand what you truly mean and what you truly want. The last resource to take your communication to the next level would be a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Now, Chris Voss is an FBI negotiator who really understands things like tactical empathy, how to ask questions in a way that creates space for people to open up and tell you the truth. If you want a glimpse into what his techniques really look like, in this video I made for introverts, I actually covered 2 of his techniques. One is called mirroring and one is called labeling. A few honorable mentions as far as books go and resources go that they're not directly about communication, but can have a strong impact on the things that we've talked about today. The first I'd urge you to consider is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. If you're really curious about this presence work and that capacity to be in the moment, please explore Eckhart's work. It really changed my life. The second book, if you're more introverted or quiet, I'd really love if you read the book Quiet by Susan Cain. That book really changed my life in that it helped me understand my introverted nature and understand that it's not a flaw, it's a strength. And if you want to learn more about how introversion is not a flaw and it is a strength, you can explore this video I made called What Introverts Get Wrong About Confidence. All right, so once you've built that foundation of the right intentions and that capacity to be present, and then you add that skillfulness on top for certain situations, you're gonna find a lot of your overthinking, it dissolves. That happens because this process is actually increasing your self-esteem. Your self-esteem is going up by engaging with people, trusting yourself, and showing evidence to your brain that you have the capacity to handle any situation that arises. Nathaniel Branden, who's really renowned for his work on self-esteem, essentially says self-esteem is made up of 2 characteristics. One is capability, one is worthiness. So when you think about what we're doing here, we're proving that we're capable to have meaningful conversations. We're showing that we can trust ourselves to engage naturally, intuitively, authentically. So we have the capability. And then we're also proving to ourselves that we are worthy. We're worthy to show up to a conversation, be at ease, be authentic, and to reap the rewards of those interactions. Now, all of that said, we can never be truly free when we engage with people unless we develop this last pillar. And it's really the final boss. And this last pillar is this. It's the courage to be disliked. At the end of the day, overcoming this overthinking problem, it requires us to transcend this need to not be judged. And I say it's a requirement because if we're going to be authentic, if we're going to embody who we are when we engage and connect with people, it is simply guaranteed that not everybody is going to like us. You know? The cost for freedom, the cost for alleviating obsessive compulsive thought, the cost for that is being disliked by some people. It just is what it is. Not everyone's going to like you. You don't like everybody else. To conduct ourselves in a way as to simply not be disliked by anybody, it's an unfree way of living. It's inauthentic. And if the idea of being disliked is just too much to bear right now, and I get that. I want to be liked. I don't want to be disliked. So if that idea is overwhelming, I think that's okay. I think we can focus on these other pillars of intentions, presence, and skillfulness. And over time, as our self-esteem increases as it relates to connecting with people, what you're going to find is that courage to be disliked, it just naturally emerges. It's not something that you have to practice. It just is a byproduct of developing these other skills and improving your self-esteem. On this channel, I share insights along my journey towards a more free and authentic life. If this resonates, I'd love if you subscribed and joined in on the conversation. So until next time.